In this video I would like to show you how I built this Boulder Diorama with a boulder called Éléphant, which also exists in reality. It is located in France in the forest of Fontainebleau and looks somehow like an elephant if you look from one side. Fontainebleau is one of the biggest boulder areas worldwide, so it is quite easy to find a lot of pictures and information about the stone I had in mind. So there is an extra website called Boulder.com with a lot of information. The stone I selected is of course in the area Éléphant. You can explore everything on a map and get the difficulties with colors and pictures and videos of each boulder problem. The boulder sadly is closed in the meantime because of safety reasons. But I anyway wanted to build that one because it's one of the most famous ones in Fontainebleau and has such a nice shape, and also is quite typical with its surrounding and the sand and the pine trees. I was also using Google Maps to check for some more pictures to have a good idea of the exact shape of the stone and the area around it. I chose the most common HO scale and a base plate with 30 to 30 centimeters and tried to find the correct size of each stone and the position. When I checked my plaster cup, I found some leftovers with plaster for indoor use to fill holes in the wall, and spontaneously I decided to use it for the stone circle which is around the sand area around the Éléphant. So I was breaking the dry plaster into pieces and modified them to have a shape I was looking for. I added some color to the stones with water-based color, which I cannot recommend because it was softening the plaster again and the sharp edges were removed a bit. So feel free to experiment a bit with the color and also add some green or dark brown. Finally, I added some black mixed with lots of water. The color then goes into the structure and gives the stones some more optical texture. I also ordered a custom-made acrylic box from sora.de, which I can definitely recommend. They produce it with the exact dimensions you need and also deliver really fast. The assembly is super easy and the screws are also included. I also got some plywood from the hardware store, where I was sanding away the sharp edges. I had two base plates, one with 10mm plywood and one with 18mm chipboard. The idea was to have two walls with background pictures and two sides being open under the acrylic box. To glue them together, I used normal wood glue. To have nice and smooth standing of the model, I glued felt gliders below the base plate in 4 edges. Then it was time to shape all the stones. Of course I started with the elephant using standard polystyrene. The cutting is super easy and goes very fast. Take care not to damage it, as it breaks super easy, and the typical shape of the stone I was looking for is super fragile at the elephant nose. This time I would like to thank Al from Boulder Creek Railroad, who is making awesome dioramas and awesome YouTube videos, which were inspiring me. So you need to check out this channel if you like ultra-realistic railroad dioramas. They are really awesome. To make the rocks, I used some material I had left at home. It was not a plaster directly meant for model making, but I decided not to extra buy some for my small model, and it turned out to do its job pretty well. Feel free to try how much water you need to add to get the desired texture. When I did cover the complete rock, I was carefully adding some details, always having a look on the pictures of the original stone. Some holes and crevices you can add with a palette knife, and if you want to remove sharp edges, you can easily do this with your fingers. With the elephant ready, I checked again my layout of the model and transferred the positions from the paper sketch to the wooden base plate. Then I could repeat the plaster modeling on the other rocks. When the plaster is dry, you can use a very fine sandpaper to make the surfaces facing outside of the model evenly and flat. I was not totally happy with the shape of the rocks in a dry stadium, so I did some smaller modifications with a screwdriver. Then I could add some color to the rocks. I used acrylic paint with 1 part color and 1 part water. In that way the color is much easier to be painted evenly on the dry plaster. The first layer is a very light gray. Make sure to let it completely dry before you add the next layer with 1 part black acrylic and about 5 parts water. This gives you this super nice effect that the structure of the stones gets much deeper. The next step is also super fun, as it makes the rocks even more realistic. You need a dry brush and take some very small amount of pure acrylic white. Make sure to have a really small amount of paint on the brush and gently wipe it over the plaster. You directly see the difference as the paint highlights all the edges of the surface. With 3 layers of green, I added the moss growing on the stones on the sun. You gently tap pure dark green, again using a dry brush, and then a medium green and light green at the end to have a bit the effect of light shining on the moss. With a small brush and light grey, I tried to add some lichens growing on the stones as well. You can see on the pictures that this is quite typical in Fontainebleau. On the other big boulder, I added some extra light brown color and of course also the white highlights. The stone circle around the elephant was fixed with 2-component glue, which was my preferred choice here because it allows to glue things down which do not have a flat surface and is also really strong. Before I added the plaster for the sand area, I taped all the edges with adhesive tape. I used again the same plaster I had left, but added some more water to have it much softer than for the rocks. The 2 rocks on the edge of the model had some undercut, which made it difficult to work beneath. So I added some plaster and then at the same time gluing the big rock with 2-component glue down to the base plate. When I was finished with the plaster, I added some smaller details, trying to make it look like the sand is not evenly flat. Again, using the same acrylic color, I mix a light brown with some gray and water for the background of the sand. I decided to wait with gluing the elephant down, because then I would be very limited working on the sand area underneath. So I had my marks with the final position of the rock, and I left some space between the elephant feet and the sand area. which I wanted to fill afterwards when the rock was fixed. Then I was ready to gently spread all the sand on the model. It definitely is recommended to use sand extra for railroad modeling, as normal sand from the backyard typically has much bigger grain and would not look realistic. With a dry brush you can easily move the sand after it is on the model. Make sure to remove every sand where you do not want it. To fix the sand I used the mixture from L, which is 1 part Mod Podge, 3 parts water and 3 drops of dish soap. Before you add the adhesive, you need to moisten all surfaces with alcoholic spray. I did not want to buy extra stuff, so I used our normal disinfection spray, which did its job quite good. Afterwards, add the self-made adhesive exactly the same way. With the 2-component adhesive, I fixed the elephant in place, as well as the trees I prepared in the meantime and already marked their positions. I made the trees by myself, and you are welcome to watch a separate video how I did this. I was not so happy with the trees you can buy off the shelf, and I wanted to make them look like the nice pine trees of Fontainebleau with their rough texture on the outside and the warm brown and red color. I added some plaster directly under the roots before I glued them down, which I could gently spread after the placement of the trees. So I had a smooth surface from my already finished sand area and the surface near the roots. I cared about the correct position of each tree, but it seems that I completely overlooked one small branch and a really big one. They both needed to be removed, not to overhang the base plate. It was a really strange feeling to cut them off, somehow, if you cut a real tree, as they look so alive standing on the model. Then I could feel the gap around the feet of the elephant. I was sanding away some sharp edges again, and adding the remaining sand around the elephant and the trees again with alcoholic spray and the self-made spray adhesive. I used black acrylic color to make the frame of the model completely black. This step is super fun as it is super easy and gives the model such a nice and much more professional look. Then I was ready to add some nice looking details. On the real scenery there is a small wooden fence which I wanted to include. You will find the process of all the details in another separate video, including all the figures and the crash pads. When I did glue the fence down, I recognized some gaps under the fence, so I did add some sand again to make every post looking like it's buried into the ground. For the side walls I printed out 2 photographs from the real scenery, which were surprisingly cheap in the grocery store. I chose pictures without any persons. One looking to a wide and open sand area, and one with some more trees looking more into the forest. To glue them down, I used a simple double-sided tape. In the real scenery, there's an informative plate in front of the elephant, explaining a bit the history of this boulder. So this was a must-have for my diorama. added some small dots of standard wood glue to add a small amount of grass. I also had some leftovers of different dirt texture from another project, which I plan to spread all over the model. The bright and red dirt I spread more over the sand areas, and the dark one, which also included some grass with the same color than my pine trees, I tried to spread out more under the trees to make it look like it was falling on them. I added some of the scenery glue directly on the spots with a lot of dirt, and afterwards I did spray the glue again on all the other areas. If you are a boulderer, you might know that the stones have some marks with colors, telling you the difficulty level. So I added a blue small dot and a small arrow on the elephant, which I found on some of the pictures. And finally, the figures were allowed to enter the forest together with their crash pads. I used 2 component adhesives, as it is really strong and has quite a short time to dry. If you want to glue a person on a rock, which would fall down, you can add some glue and then fix the person with sellotape until the glue is dry. Some smaller drops of glue remained quite shiny afterwards, so I painted them with the self-made scenery glue to give them a bit more matte surface. And then it was just a matter of adding the side walls and the acrylic glass box. Thanks for watching.